What's happening, good people? How y'all doing today? Man, having a good day? I hope you are. I know I am. On today's walk and talk, I thought that I would just drop a quick video and talk to you about some of the things that I have learned, not only throughout this year, but more importantly, kind of share with you a little bit of insight and just kind of some reflection on the year, but more importantly, what I'm taking into next year. The crazy thing has been that as a black father, this has been the year of transition between conversations that I've had to have with my sons. So it kind of got me to thinking, like, you know what? It would be great to host a set of conversations with other, fathers of color and see what it was like to be a dad this year, like from other perspectives. You know what I mean? Like, when you think about, your kids, when you think about just this year, when you think about like being a husband, when you just think about like the different things you had to consider this year and the conversations that were either good or tough to talk about, but you had to have them. Man, there was a lot going on this year. A lot of things that, of course, I didn't see coming, but you had to have it. You had to have those conversations. You had to have that discussion, whether you wanted to or not, right? So, let's see. Let's start at the top of the year, which was the shift in transition for, dealing with the virus. I think the first thing I remember this year about those discussions was how weird it was to go from a normal everyday life, doing what you normally do, to one moment it's kind of like, oh, it's a little something. A couple of weeks later, no, this thing is real. Third week, the NBA is shut down. Fourth week, we got to do something different, right? And having to talk to my sons about what I didn't know. I think every parent, especially as a dad, it's like, normally when there's something that comes up, you got a little bit of experience on, like, you can give them some sort of path. To be honest, I had no answers this year for coronavirus for my kids. I had no answers for how long they were going to be not able to go to school. I had no answers for how long they can't go see their friends. I had no answers for my son's 16th birthday party, by the way, which was this year, at the house with nobody. I had no answers for that. I think it's funny. I think most parents' worst nightmare is not knowing what you don't know, and having to explain that to your kids, right? So we had a lot of that this year. Of some unknowns. And the other thing, though, that when I think about it, it brought us to the forefront of what our family dynamics really were. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like, if you're not used to talking to your kids every day, you found that there was a gap and you had to deal with it. If you were used to being in a situation where you didn't really deal with your relational problems, you had that. You had to deal with it this year. So that was pretty interesting. The other thing I had to consider about this year was just how crazy and integrated you found out everything was, right? Like you really found out just how integrated the world is. Coronavirus helped us see that you don't get to just say, that little small business down the corner, down the street doesn't matter. Because we saw too many profile stories of, you know, that little smoothie shop, that little taco place that you just walk by every day. You started to see the humanity in behind the store. You started to see, no, that's a real mom and dad who that's their livelihood. And by the way, yes, they own a business, but they're also living paycheck to paycheck, which means that if we're not patronizing their business, they're not in a good space. Not to mention, not only did you have that going on, but then you had the responsibility in the conversation around understanding like what it truly meant to go from the conversation of just, you know, the business side to it, to every last one of us can actually do something about it, right? Like, it's one thing when you hear stories about somebody and you're like, oh man, that's terrible. But the only reason why you don't really do something about it is because it's not close to you. This year, kids not in school, lots of kids on free or reduced lunch because they don't have the money. And now school is really the only place where they ate food. Like, think about that for a second. And then all of a sudden this year, we were able to have a conversation and realize, wait a minute, I can do something about that. I can help out in my local community, and I can actually buy groceries for other people, other families who can't afford it. Because maybe in your neighborhood, you didn't think about the fact that there are kids who rely on lunch at school because that's their only meal. That's their biggest meal of the day, right? So you know, you learned so many different things about how connected this world is. And sometimes we just didn't pay that any attention until now, right? Until now, we really started thinking about, man, that's tough to deal with, right? If I'm a kid, it's tough to deal with. If I'm a parent, and here's the thing, you couldn't unsee it, right? When somebody told you some of these stories about what was happening as a result, you can't unsee that stuff. When you started to notice that families who were being impacted and or wiped out by coronavirus, and then you can't even go to the funeral because of COVID concerns, and you're watching. I just talked to a friend of mine, had to go to his grandmother's funeral on Zoom. What world did we see that coming? But it taught us something. This world is a lot more connected than we like to believe. Many of us, you know, move to certain parts of the city so that we can live that private life and all those other things. And then you realize, I can try to get away from it, and I can try to get away from poverty. I can try to get away from things that I don't want to see. Coronavirus said, nah, you gonna see this. You gonna see just how connected we are. If you own a business, you struggled this year because you started to recognize supply chain is everything. My vendor relationships, I can't just do people dirty because I own a business and I want to be all mean and nasty, and you can't do that no more. Not in today's world. Some of y'all had to learn how to be an empathetic business owner. Some of y'all had to practice understanding. Some of y'all had to learn that it ain't about you as a business owner, which is crazy. Some of y'all had to figure out, like, oh snap, I can't just treat people terrible because I think I'm Mr. or Mrs. whoever I think I am. I can't do that anymore. I gotta actually talk to people. I gotta actually treat people with respect. I gotta actually live with people. What? I can't just be mean, bossy, and nasty. Nope, you cannot. Because guess what? They don't have to serve you. People are already dealing with enough. They don't have to do anything, honestly. And that's the part that I think a lot of us have figured out, is that, you know what? It's a privilege to patronize somebody else's business. It's a privilege to learn how to live with the state of affairs the way they are today. It's like these things are privileges. Like it's none of this is like given. Like it's a privilege to live this way, right? And so many people never really thought about it like that, but it's a privilege, like a real privilege. And so you got to start asking yourself, like, man, this year, what did this year teach me? What did I have to figure out? Well, for the majority of us, we had to figure out that this life is only gonna get better for those who want to get better. All right, it's not gonna get better for those who just want to constantly try to live a life that is not something worth living for. It's not gonna get better for the guy who wants to continue to be selfish. Your life is not gonna get better, and you'll be further behind for the people who don't want to learn a new skill. You'll end up in a bad situation, or let me put it this way: you found out this year you're gonna end up further behind because you didn't want to learn, right? And I think for those of us who want to learn, who want to grow, who want to figure out this world, the best thing we could ever do is learn how to be more empathetic, live with our highest ideals, right? Get to a better form of self, and be honest about the fact that, you know what, this whole time you might have been living selfishly. And 2020 showed you all the holes that need to be plugged in your own life, because you're realizing I can't live selfishly and live a healthy life. Selfishness probably wrecked a lot of people this year. And we could be selfish in many different ways. It doesn't mean always something bad. It just might mean you probably have the mentality or inner vow that I'm going to always look out for me. Okay, cool. How did that work out for you this year? Because if I have a clothing store and my supplier is struggling with not only having workers in the shop to make the clothes that I want them to make, and or is struggling to move the product to me in a quick enough fashion, I might actually have to care about what's happening over there. I might have to pull up with them on Zoom and talk about, hey, how do we work better together? I might have to give them a break on the cost per item or what have you, because you know what, I need them and they need me, and the only way they get their product to their end customer is me, and the only way I get what I need is keeping them as a vendor. Again, it just taught us so much about the connectedness of life. And I think all of us, every last one of us, have an opportunity this year, or have had an opportunity this year to realize, you know what, I can't live selfish no more. I can't live like other people don't matter, like things are just all about me. Not this year. And then as we, got through elections and, dealing with the election time, right? You got a chance to see, like, all right, what are other people thinking, right? Like, how do other people view things? You got a chance to see the ugly side of humanity. You got a chance to see the kindness of humanity. You got a chance to experience it all with the election, right? You got a chance to see that from my personal vantage point, there aren't enough adults who are of age, but are not actually acting like adults. They're still 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, right? Very narrow-minded, not open, not willing to accept realities, right? Crash and burn kind of people, right? I'm gonna go down, with the ship. Okay, well, see how that worked out for you this year. Instead of accepting that, you know what, there might have been a better way to do a lot of things, and maybe we just missed it, and accepting to say, you know what, I got it wrong this time, right? So, there's so many different aspects and elements to this year that, wow, whew, it can be daunting. But I got another way I want you to think about this year. Just go with me for a second. What if this year is your opportunity and all about you figuring out that this was your chance, and it still is your chance. By the time you see this video, it's still your chance to reset your life. Reset your priorities, reset your values, be honest, Maybe this is the first time in your life in the year where you get to say, you know what, some ways that I thought and the ways I behaved were actually wrong. And I need to correct that, right? Maybe there's some ways and some attitudes that you realize in the long run, it doesn't serve me or the people around me any better. Maybe you realize, you know, me not being connected to my wife and kind of living through work and distance and all of those things, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Maybe it was a better idea for me to, you know, really connect with my family. Maybe I should have spent some time really focused on learning my kids, learning what they like, instead of trying to tell them everything they need to do. Maybe this was that chance. Maybe as a man, I've got more to learn than I thought I did. And maybe I should just be okay with that. When I built, you know, and started kind of dreaming up and thinking about, man, what type of platform would I like to see and build that really spoke to what I'm finding my passion around? It was us men. The world according to Chris is not just my viewpoint on things, because it's that too. But it's more so realizing that I'm a man out here trying to navigate this world and constantly growing every day. So the 20-year-old Chris that had all these bright ideas and was unhinged, he was a real person. And he really had a way of thinking. But the 30-year-old Chris, the 40-year-old Chris, the 50-year-old Chris is going to be laced in a lot of experience and maturity. And no matter where I may find myself, I should be in a place where I'm willing to grow and growing, right? It should be present. It should be a constant state of presence of growing and maturity. There's never a spot where I believe like, oh, I'm done growing now. And I done figured it all out. That's a freaking lie. I will never believe that for anybody. What it is a lot of times we just choose not to learn anything else. We settle at a place instead of living towards something. And I think that's important. And so as a man, I realize there's a lot of aspects of my life that a lot of times might be unique, might be different, and it might be worth talking about. Because there's certain conversations that just seem taboo, and that a lot of times we don't like to discuss out loud openly. I'm just crazy enough to discuss them.